Hey guys, Untitled Gaming here, and today we're going to compare the Gamepad 2, the Archos Gamepad 2, with the JXD S7800B. Now, obviously there are some big, or obviously noticeable changes, and the first change, or the first difference you'll notice, are the analog sticks, which I've noticed in a previous video. I really dislike the analog sticks on the Gamepad 2, just because they feel more like the first generation PSP analog stick. On the JXD, however, the analog sticks are better. They do have more travel, but they're definitely more responsive in that sense. Now, the Gamepad 2 does have the glossy finish to the front, and it's very much a fingerprint magnet. In fact, it's not that bad, but it just attracts fingerprints, which is a pain, whereas the JXD does have a cheaper feel or look to it. Certainly not feel, has a cheaper look to it. It doesn't look as premium as the Gamepad 2. Now, the Gamepad 2, obviously, their buttons are positioned differently to the JXD's. I actually prefer the JXD's positioning because I'm not holding it at the edge down here where I would be holding it. I'm actually holding it the whole device as opposed to just the small amount of the device. And it's more comfortable in your hands that way than the Gamepad 2. Now, the Gamepad 2 has larger speakers, thus can go louder. Both of them certainly don't lack clarity when it comes to speaker sound. It's just the Gamepad 2 speaker is slightly, ever so slightly louder. Now, the other big difference is the width of both consoles or Android tablets. This one's only about, say, half an inch wide, whereas this one is say, a good inch in width. This one feels a lot heavier, mind you, whereas this one, it doesn't feel as heavy. But personally, I prefer the heavier feeling one, just because I know I'm holding something weighty in my hand, and this one I'm always scared I'm gonna drop it, you know. But the other one, it's not too much. Now, on the back of the Archos Gamepad, it's very similar to the back of the JXD, except it doesn't have the Android logo there, and the micro SD card slot is slightly indented into the bottom, whereas the JXD's isn't. The triggers are also slightly different, but they both feel really responsive. Same with the buttons. The buttons are really responsive on both. Personally, I prefer where the camera is situated. On the Gamepad 2, it's situated in the center, whereas the JXD is situated just to the left of the screen, just between the analog stick there. I actually prefer the Gamepad 2's choice on positioning, but the JXD, I guess, does it because of where the screen size, etc. The screen actually is rather big, so there is no space to fit it. So it does it. They've done it for space reasons. The buttons on the Archos Gamepad 2 for volume and power are along the top, but it isn't really too much of a problem. But certainly defeats the object when you're trying to play something you want to turn it up, you know, because you've got to go to the top of the device rather than the side. So the JXD is better in that sense. Now, screen-wise, if I can just turn these on, I think they're very, very close, personally. I think the JXD certainly has a sort of deeper image look to it, but they're very, 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 very close on screen capability. And obviously on the Archos, you've got that slight bar on the bottom, which I dislike, because you need the home button and the back button, whereas the JXD has a dedicated. There's a couple of other differences between both consoles. The JXD is actually running Android 4.4 KitKat now, whereas the Gamepad 2, even though I believe it could run 4.4 KitKat, they've never actually updated it, so it's still running 4.2 Jelly Bean, which has obviously some compatibility issues now with some Google Play games. Another thing, just the general sort of aesthetic. I mean, the Gamepad 2 looks nicer and feels okay, but the JXD is weighty and feels a lot better in your palm. The other thing I like about the Gamepad 2, which I dislike about the JXD is the dedicated charger, which I've mentioned already in the previous videos. The Gamepad 2 charges via micro USB, which is a lot easier than having a dedicated charging cable or charging adapter. I don't understand why they did that. Maybe to save a little bit of space, but I think they should have definitely added a micro USB charging ability to the JXD, because even though you've got the port there, it doesn't charge through that port, which is kind of disappointing. So as you see, both are very similar consoles. Both do actually have very similar specs, and both have pros and cons. It all depends on your preference, really. If you want something that looks nicer, or looks nicer to you, looks a bit more glossy and finished, then you'd probably go with the Archos Gamepad 2. But if you want something that's up to date and is definitely sort of better in terms of hardware, even slightly better, you'd probably go with the JXD. But I think both are really good consoles. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, like, comment and subscribe. I shall see you soon with the video review of the JXD. Cheers.